What you're seeing here are China's Belt and Road ports around the globe. At first glance, these look like ordinary commercial ports meant to bolster trade. But if you take a closer look, there's a lot more to these port projects than meets the eye.
In pursuing the Belt and Road Initiative, we will not resort to outdated geopolitical maneuvering. What we hope to create is a big family of harmonious coexistence.
Since announcing the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, more than 7 years ago, China has repeatedly insisted that the initiative is for peaceful purposes only. Beijing's gone to great lengths to downplay any geostrategic motives and generally has kept its military, the People's Liberation Army, or the PLA, out of the picture to dispel any concerns about a China threat. Even China's one overseas military base in Djibouti on the Horn of Africa is officially described as a logistics support facility, even though it hosts China's anti-piracy task force, and even though it houses an estimated 2,000 Chinese soldiers. But not everyone is convinced by China's assurances, and some governments and some analysts have been raising the alarm.
Through its Belt and Road Initiative, for example, the PRC is leveraging its overseas investments to force other nations into suboptimal security decisions.
I think the One Belt, One Road posture has been a stalking horse to advance Chinese security concerns. Minister Wei said as much in a Latin American conference just last summer.
So ASPI decided to take a close look to see if there's a basis for any of these concerns. What we found is that a number of these BRI port projects don't seem to make much commercial sense, but they don't appear to be built as fortified naval bases either. So then, what's the real rationale behind China's development of these infrastructure projects in the Indian Ocean and in the Pacific? Well, one thing we found is that they are strategically located along important sea lanes. These are the transport lines for the energy and raw materials that China needs and corridors for the finished products that China exports. It makes sense that Chinese officials have now begun speaking more openly about the need to secure the sea lanes that they depend on and to safeguard the large number of Chinese workers involved in BRI projects around the world. You can see the strategic importance of the Gwadar port in Pakistan and their Hambantota port in Sri Lanka in that sense. Both are situated along China's maritime lifeline in the Indian Ocean, and Gwadar sits right at the mouth of the Persian Gulf. It's the gateway to the Middle East. The BRI port projects that China has developed in Myanmar and in Cambodia are at either end of the Malacca Strait. That's a potential choke point for China's access to the rest of the world. So the geography means that China has strategically located facilities that could bolster the PLA's ability to operate by providing logistics support, even though these ports aren't fortified bases. And the Chinese, it turns out, have a term for this: strategic strong points. Now, under Chinese law, all ports, at home or overseas, must be designed to meet PLA standards to accommodate Chinese Navy ships. And under China's civil-military fusion principle, Chinese port operators, shipping lines, all Chinese companies are legally required to support the PLA, not just in war, but in peacetime as well. What that adds up to is BRI commercial projects that are designed as dual-use strategic strongpoints that could be militarized in the future. This fits with what is called the civilian first, military later approach in Chinese doctrine. In the meantime, as civilian ports, these strategic strong points expand the Chinese Navy's logistics network and its ability to conduct operations overseas. But in fact, they do far more than that, because they serve as a platform for Chinese influence in the host country and in the region. In the 4 major projects that we examined, Chinese companies have long-term leases or majority stakes in every one of the ports. And that means that they have de facto operational control of each port. And all 4 are built to something the Chinese call the port park city model. What that means is that each port is just one part of a bigger industrial project with businesses to support things like resupply and ship repair, businesses that put Chinese operators in a better position to service both commercial and naval ships. And this port park city model connects to Chinese digital programs like smart cities and safe cities. Those are programs with enhanced surveillance technology that collects big data that's very, very useful to Beijing. And it also links them to the digital Silk Road and increases reliance on Huawei and other Chinese tech companies for telecommunications. Under another program called the BRI Space Information Corridor, Beijing has launched the Chinese alternative to GPS, the Beidou satellite network, and they're working to connect BRI countries under their system. So all of these interlinked programs make for a growing dependence on China. There's more and more levers that Beijing can use to extract concessions or to get compliance from project host states. Oh, and did I mention that all 4 of the countries where these ports are located are heavily in debt to China? So while it's true that China's Indo-Pacific port projects aren't configured as military bases, they do have the capacity to support Chinese military interests and operations built into them. But perhaps more than their potential military utility, these BRI facilities serve as platforms that enable China to increase its leverage and its influence. It's not just a matter of a string of strategically located logistics support bases. They are integrated into a widening ecosystem of Chinese commercial and technological, diplomatic, informational, and military connectivity. So the bottom line question is, where does this all lead? Is the Belt and Road Initiative being weaponized as a launching pad for a Sino-centric ecosystem that will upend the existing rules-based order in the Indo-Pacific? What are the implications for the United States, for like-minded states, for all the countries in the Indo-Pacific region? The Asia Society Policy Institute has now published a report that addresses these questions and lays out our findings in more detail. It's called Weaponizing the Belt and Road. So please visit asiasociety.org and take a look. And if you'd like to learn more about Asia, more about ASPI, and more about our work, please also subscribe to our channel. Thanks.